Hey, folks, welcome into the closing line for Monday, October 23rd, 2017, presented by the good people at sportsbookreview.com. Welcome in. I'm your host, Donnie Rightside, for tonight's episode. As usual, in just a few moments, we'll bring in our resident Monday host here, Mr. Pistol Pete, Peter Loshak. Before we do that, a lot to go over on the docket tonight for us. We're going to have some NHL action we'll go over, some NBA action, a big Monday Night Football game here up on deck. We'll have some fun with that. One of the better things I like to do on the Monday show is take a peek and look ahead to the next weekend coming up. Some good college football action we'll go over with Pistol Pete, as well as going over some NFL action, some opening lines, just to give you a few bits, maybe a synopsis, choosing my words here for us, as we look down the line and try to help you out, maybe pick off some of those earlier opening lines, maybe point you in the right direction. As always, thanks for joining in on the chat box, folks. We always like to remind you as well, go check out the websites for us here, sbrodds.com. Check us out and follow us on Twitter at SBR Sports Picks. Also, give us a like, YouTube. Let us know what's going on out there in the live chat box as well. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please feel free to do so as well. Also, with sportsbookreview.com, one of the best things about this website is the content that we provide. We love to keep giving this stuff to you daily, so support our causes there. And what I mean by that is, hey, if you're looking to gamble on a game, it's an easy way to go. Go to sportsbookreview.com, click on some of the links on there, ratings for just about every offshore sports book out there. Get some good tips, get some good follows, and also go ahead and get those bonuses there. Keep the lights on down in Costa Rica for our good friends as well. Again, we love bringing this to you. I'm not going to waste any more time here, folks. I want to bring in the man, the myth, the legend, a new look, high-end, high-tech show with Jimmy the Bag and Pistol Pete Loshak this morning on The Odds Couple. Look great in the studio there. Pete does wonderful things around the channel, also on Saturdays with my other co-host, the big man on campus, on the closing line edition on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Pete, welcome into the show, my friend.
Oh, thanks so much. The good news is I'm significantly up in every single sport this year. The bad news is, Donnie, one of my hallmarks, one of the things I pride myself on is honesty. Now, when you're winning, that's easy. When you're coming off a 7-19 week in college football, it's a little tougher.
No, I hear you on that, Pete. But we can always say, living in the States, we can use that as it's a nice weekend because you're winning so much, Pete. You do still need the tax write-offs here that you can get from your gambling losses. So we'll try to keep that all in perspective for us there. But no, I know you're doing a real good job there. Follow on quite a bit. It's good stuff there. By the way, I meant to ask you, on the new studio layout there with you and Jimmy the Bag, was that your idea down there? Is the money flowing now for that show for you there?
Oh, no. I don't know whose idea it was. I like it. I like the setup. I mean, I know that it looks expensive, but it was very strict there was strict instructions to use as cheap materials as possible. So it looks very expensive and high end. It's actually very cheap and low end.
Pretty good stuff there. I appreciate it. About halfway through the show, we're probably going to get a phone call in as well, folks, from CG Technologies. Matt Holt, see where the money's going tonight on the Monday Night Football game. Also, Major League Baseball World Series on deck, so I'll be able to ask him, hopefully, and pick his brain to see any sharp money coming in on either one of those ball clubs, some future plays that might actually come to fruition now that the Major League Baseball season is ending. Pete, why don't you say we get through a couple things first? Of course, the big game on the docket tonight we know is the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Redskins. We'll go over and give a complete breakdown of that as well. Once again, folks, just chiming into the live chat box. Let us know what you're thinking out there. We'll try to get to as many games as possible, but there are a few things we do want to get to. Pete, on the NHL ice surface tonight, there are two games. Why don't we start with those? 51 and 52 on the rotation, 7 p.m. Eastern time. The puck will be dropping there with San Jose and the New York Rangers. Heinrich Lundqvist will be in net there. If we open up at Pinnacle, Pete, -115. Chris at -125. Line sticking around that same level there. -120, -123 at BetOnline, -125 at sportsbook.com. Also seeing a total here, Pete, of 5.5. What are we looking at in this matchup here tonight?
Well, yeah, Jim and I were pretty much in agreement on this game. We had a slight lean to a San Jose if they were a decent-sized dog. Now, when we did our show, the best line was +100, so clearly some money has come in on the Rangers. Now you can even get +112 at 5 dimes, +11 at betonlinesportsbetting.ag. Not quite sure if that would entice us to bet it. Last year, of course, these two teams played very, very high-scoring games, so it's slightly tempting to take a shot with the over as well, but it's going to be a pass for both of us. I would, the higher the line gets, the more I'm tempted to take San Jose. San Jose in general, not a good team this year, but neither are the Rangers. They're coming off a win, which is nice, but I think they're going to struggle overall long term. So it's a pass for me right now. It's definitely a pass for us in the morning. But if this line gets up to maybe +120, might be worth a shot with San Jose.
You got it. Let's look at the next game here, Pete. 53-54 in the rotation. Also a 7 p.m. Eastern time puck drop here. That's going to be the Los Angeles Kings traveling east to play the Toronto Maple Leafs. Over under that one, Pete, sitting at 6 across the board. Pinnacle opened up at 150. They now sit at 141. Chris actually opened up at 160. Now sits at 145. CG Technologies 145. Bet Online 141 also. What are we looking at here, Pete? Kings coming east here to play Toronto. What can we have on deck on this one?
Well, this is another game where Jim and I are in lockstep agreement with and I think that that's probably a pretty good sign. Obviously, Toronto off to a great start to the year, and that is not a surprise. That didn't take many people by surprise. The Kings having this great of a start did take people by surprise, a lot of people, but it is still a relatively small sample size, young season. So teams in the NHL, a lot of variance in the NHL, so they will go through those kinds of runs all season long. And Jim and I are both of the opinion that not necessarily going to be the easiest thing for the Kings to maintain their success going forward. Whereas we're much higher on Toronto. We both took this one. He took them on the puck line. I took them on the -1 line, and the line has moved slightly in our favor since the morning show. So, the quick, great goalie, and it's impressive what the Kings have done, but feels like a little bit of a letdown spot for them here, and Toronto should get the win here. So Jim and I are both on it, and I bet it for sure.
Yeah, what's interesting about that? We always joke around, me and Jeff. Sunday morning, we don't get much time to talk. I go on the closing line with Gabe and do the show, but it's funny. We sort of came around to the same play. I always get nervous when me and Jeff agree on something there, when somebody agrees with me on a few things. We were in agreement yesterday. My one loss was on the Cleveland Browns over 42, which went to overtime and didn't even come close to the total. And me and Jeff did send those plays out there to give and thought we could eat off of those, Pete. So it didn't start very well for us yesterday. Cleaned up a little bit on the Seattle Seahawks a little bit later with
Donnie,
-3, -120, but I laugh at those. Go ahead.
The under in the Cleveland game was my 3-unit play in the Jimmy the Bag contest. I thought that was a great.
Now see when I put the play out there, I'm talking about it, Pete. It's your send me an email like, don't do it. Buy back this. I mean, I actually saw Sunday morning. I'm saying, you know what? I'm going to add one more play here. Started digging in there. I saw Jabril Peppers was out. Also saw McCourty was out. I saw Kaiser was coming back in. I said, you know what? They might move the football a little bit. Tennessee's a decent offense. That game almost put me to sleep.
Yeah.
And it was one of those games where sometimes you put out, Pete, that the next day you're like, you know what? That was kind of embarrassing. I put that play out.
I mean, my whole reasoning for it was just that, Deshaun Kaiser obviously has a, possibly bright future in the NFL, but that to start things off, especially putting him back in the lineup, Cleveland's probably going to be conservative offensively with them, and with Mariota, having the bum hamstring, probably going to be conservative offensively with him as well. And that was basically my only factor for liking the under. So it didn't get much deeper.
No,
than that.
and you're dead on that as well. Yeah. Sometimes I get a little bit caught up where I only see it from one angle, and as the game goes on, I mean, hey, it could have scored 55 points, whatever it was. But the more you watch the football game, the slow pace of it. You saw Mariota didn't want to run.
Yeah.
Cleveland stops the run, at a decent clip there. DeMarco Murray still coming in banged up. They played on a short week. I should have known much better than to do that, but at least I pulled out a winner a little bit later on in the day. But those are the ones. That's a great pick by you, an awful pick by me, Pete. Why don't we switch up to some NBA action tonight? Two games I want to take a look at with you here. Both 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time starts here. 5:09, 5:10, the Golden State Warriors and the Dallas Mavericks. Looking at the line here, Pete, Pinnacle opened up in double digits at -10.5. That quickly rose to 12.5. Chris also the same opening number, Pete, -10.5. That one now sits at 13. So depending on where you're shopping at, they're offshore 12.5 to 13, and over under in this one, Pete, looking about 215.5, 216 across the board. Any thoughts on this game on the hardwood tonight?
This game actually didn't have an overnight line, so I didn't, because I don't give picks in the morning show. It didn't have overnight lines, but I did just tweet out my pick on this game. I do have a pick on this game, and my tweets do go on my official overall permanent record, and I did tweet out Dallas on the first half -7. Of course, it opened at 6. Now it's 7, but I like it at 7. Anyway, obviously, both teams have been struggling to start the year. That is not likely to continue for Golden State, to put it mildly. That is, I think, likely to continue for Dallas. Dirk Nowitzki, I think, is just, a lot of times when you have these legends who are extreme veterans in like their last season, teams will leave them out there just out of respect a little bit longer than any other player struggling that much would get left out there. And I think that's going to be the case for Nowitzki, and I think that's really going to hurt them defensively this year until they start significantly limiting his minutes. I don't know what's going to happen, but obviously a big bounce back spot for Golden State. They have to be pissed how things have gone so far this year, and Dallas a very, very beatable opponent. So I tweeted out Golden State -7, -110 at Pinnacle as an official play. Wish I could have given it out at -6 at the opener, but I'm fine with -7 as well.
Works horse here, 5'11", 5'12", another 8:30 start. As I said here, Toronto Raptors traveling down to play the San Antonio Spurs, the Kawhi Leonard-less Spurs at this point here. Line opened up here, Pete, looks like 2.5. Sticking at 2.5. The only game, the only book a little bit different there is CG Technologies at -3, -105, but BetOnline's at 2.5, sportsbook.com 2.5, the Greek at 2.5. Over under this one, Pete, opened up a little bit higher. 204.5, I see at Pinnacle, 206 at Chris, but if you throttle down there and see what the live lines are right now, 202 at Chris, 202 at CG Technologies, 201.5 at BetOnline. What are we looking at this game tonight here, Pete?
Well, I'll tell you what. I believe I bet this one on the overnight line, and I did bet the over, and I did get it at 205, and obviously now it's down to a 201.5 or 202. But I'm actually not that upset about it relatively as I would be with other line moves that go against me. In general, when Toronto and San Antonio play, their games have tended to be high scoring, and they've tended to go over. I can sort of understand why the total is coming down because obviously the Spurs played a lockdown defensive game in their last game. Kawhi Leonard's out. Obviously, Valanciunas out for Toronto is a negative as well. But Toronto, they've been super high scoring this year. Great offensive, production from their backcourt. And to beat an aging team like the Spurs, Toronto, tries to outrun them and tries to wear them down a little bit. So I'm still liking the over at what I got it at. And now it's down to 201.5 or 202. I might be on the wrong side of this one, but I'd be leaning over on this one. As far as the spread's concerned, I have no opinion on that one. It's obviously dangerous always to bet against San Antonio and Popovich, especially when their star players are out. It tends to be when the star players are in and they're a massive favorite that they don't cover. But in this spot where Kawhi Leonard's out and there's a very small home favorite, it's scary to bet against them. So I'd probably lean the Spurs here. But I did bet this one. I bet the over, got 205, terrible line, and I'd like it obviously even more now at 201.5 or 202.
Pete, by the way, another half dozen games or so on the NBA docket. I know we don't review too many of those games, but if there's another game out there that you might like, you might want to go over, maybe give out to the people as a free pick here on the closing line, Pete. Floor is yours.
For tonight, well, yeah, I gave a couple of picks. I'm sorry?
No, I said go ahead. Yeah, let's do it. Yep.
Gave a couple picks in the morning show with Jim, and I'm certainly feeling good about them. The Memphis-Houston over, I gave that one I bet it at 210.5 on the overnight line. In the show, it was 211.5, and so I gave it out at that line. Now it's up to 212.5 or 213. Five Dimes still has 212, and Memphis, of course, playing a higher paced brand of basketball this year. We know what Houston does under D'Antoni, and their scoring so far this year has been a little bit lower than you would expect from them, but I think that mostly has to just do with fluky shooting numbers. I think they're going to have a better offensive day here, so I do like the over there. And Jim and I also both like Milwaukee tonight, although when we got it, it was 6.5. Now it's up to 7. So I guess I would still like it a bit there. So definitely liking Milwaukee and on the first half, and liking the over on that one, and definitely liking Golden State again on the first half as well.
All right, now we're going to get to the good part of the show, as I like to say here in the Northeast. We're all amped up and ready for this football game tonight. 477, 478, that's the Washington Redskins coming to town, Pete, to play the Philadelphia Eagles. Spread ticket wagers, I mean, it's Monday Night Football. You're going to get a lot of action on these. 55% leaning towards the Eagles in the spread numbers coming back. Over-under in this football game, 48.5. Looks to be 48.5 pretty much across the board. Sportsbook.com, Pete showing a 49.5. I know that line's been hovering all week long between 48.5, 49. Looks like it's going to probably settle into that. Opening line at Pinnacle 5.5. Opening line at Chris 5. I know there were 4.5s that were available last week or later in the week. I did grab that at 4.5 for the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to break down this game and have a pretty good time with it here. Pete, what are your thoughts on this game here, Lofar? I'll let you start it off.
Well, to start off, I was ready to jump all over Washington, but then I saw that injury and this injury and the other injury and Josh Norman out. Just too many injuries for Washington, so I did not bet Washington here, although because of the spot, I really wanted to. And Philly gets back the offensive lineman. That's a huge benefit. So the spot, I feel, favors Washington, but the injury situation significantly favors Philly. So I know that everyone's on Philly here, which is why the line has been driven up. I mentioned in the morning show that I kind of was leaning to the under as well on this one, and there was a 49.5, couple 49.5s available in the morning show. I do think we're going to see a little bit of a lower scoring game here, probably. And I think I also mentioned that in a game like this, I like to look at player props. I think the best player prop that I would like here would be for Washington, Chris Thompson, rushing plus receiving yards at 65.5. I mean, the way that guy can break off big plays, you're talking that could easily be handled in 3 plays, right? Guy could easily break off 3 plays for 22 yards each, and now you're over 65.5 rushing plus receiving yards. I think that he's whatever happens, the way if it's low scoring, high scoring, no matter which team has the lead here, I think that the Redskins are going to rely a lot on Thompson. So that would be my pick on this one: rushing and receiving yards over 65.5. The side and the total both scare me. Slight lean to the under, and the side I don't even know. I guess if you gave me a free play on the side, I'd take the Redskins plus 5.5, but definitely didn't bet that one.
No, I see where you're coming from on that one. If we're taking a look from a betting perspective in this game, obviously being close to the situation, as they say, with the Philadelphia Eagles, I haven't bet on the Philadelphia Eagles or against them all year. I think this sets up for a great spot for them. The Eagles were a little bit banged up in that game versus the Carolina Panthers, but you have the extended time, the extended layoff there, and one team is healthier than the other team, which is a big, you can't really take a look and say, opening day, what it was, what it is. You have a new guard starting for the Philadelphia Eagles, which is really going to help out. In that first game, they really struggled at the guard position, letting a lot of penetration through there. Jonathan Allen is a really big loss for that defense because he sets up Ryan Kerrigan outside as a defensive end to try to take the pressure off. Lane Johnson, who did not play in the Carolina game, if you noticed in the first half, before the Eagles could even, blink, all Carolina was doing was overloading the right side of the Philadelphia Eagles line and just bringing the heat and bringing the blitzes. And the Eagles couldn't pick it up because they weren't, you don't have your starters in there. You're not going to be able to get those exotic twists, those exotic blitzes. Lane Johnson's going to be back for this football game. A healthier mode for the Eagles. You're coming in, Alshon Jeffrey's healthy, Nelson Aguilar is healthy, Torrey Smith is healthy, Zach Ertz is healthy. Obviously, the entire O-line intact here. When you flip it over and try to take a look at the Washington Redskins coming into the game, Josh Norman, say what you want, whether Pro Football Focus rates him really high. He's a good cornerback because he's willing to take on your best wide receiver, attack the run, and play really, really physical in the football game. He's going to be taken out. And I actually hope, I see Brashard Breeland's going to try to play. He's trying to force the hand of the Redskins. He really wants to get out and play this game. I hope he does play in this football game because when you have a sprained, MCL or whatever he has, a knee injury, he might only be able to play the first quarter and it goes out. That's another live body that you're going to take off the field and have somebody in a position that you could have activated before the football game to get him in there. So those injuries are going to weigh on the Washington Redskins. And again, last year, if you're saying right now, if you're coming in with Pierre Garçon and you're coming in with Deshaun Jackson, the Eagles have always had problems with that because the Eagles really struggle with fast speed wide receivers. Deshaun Jackson killed them when he went to Washington because the Eagles corners right now are built to be a little bit more physical and not on the speedy end of it until Ron Darby and Sidney Jones comes back in the game. Now you're leaning on Terrell Pryor, who's still learning the wide receiver position. He's a dynamic athlete, but you see he does have some drops out there. And Jamison Crowder really hasn't stepped up yet. You see Jordan Reed, the tight end Reed, all throughout the season, banged up just about each and every season. Coming into this game, I just think the Philadelphia Eagles are a better team. I snapped them up at 4.5. I like them all the way up to 6.5 in this environment because you're coming in rested. And to me, Pete, I look at this football game that says, does Washington want to win the football game? Of course they want to win the football game. Every win, especially beating an NFC opponent, and especially an NFC opponent on the road, is very important. But their quote-unquote game of the year is next week when they have the Dallas Cowboys at home. That's the game they absolutely must win in this situation. They're 3-2 coming in. They'll end up 3-3 after tonight, but they have to win next week and go 4-3 versus the Cowboys to try to get that NFC East lead. I just don't think it's a great matchup. Has Kirk Cousins, have the Redskins played the Eagles well over the past several years? Of course they have. But you like to try to center and see exactly what the need is here. The Eagles are a really good football team. It's not smoke and mirrors under Mike Vick, Chip Kelly, Nick Foles. This is a really good team moving the chains on third down, and the loss of Allen up the middle again is really going to hurt that football team as well as the cornerbacks. The Eagles will be really aggressive tonight, and they should be able to pull out the victory. I have the Eagles by 7 points in this one, Pete. Over-underwise 48-49, Pete. You leaning towards anything in that situation?
No, I mean, at 49.5, I think I would lean a little bit towards the under just because you have to figure Washington knows they have, they're at a disadvantage here in terms of injuries and in the secondary. So I'm guessing Washington to try to slow down the game a little bit. But no, again, I'm liking player props. And you mentioned Ertz, right, as a big weapon on offense. And he had a huge day the first time they matched up. And the way I'm expecting this game to work out, he might also be a great bet on his player props over. His receptions just 5.5. I think he had 8 receptions in the first matchup, and yards just 65.5. And I think he was like 80 or 90 in the first matchup as well. So that would be my second best player prop bet as well. Ertz yards receiving over 65.5. I assume you'd agree with that, right?
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, he's the blanket over the middle every time. I mean, he doesn't run well after the catch, but he's always open, and I do think it's a great prop. Carson Wentz looks for that guy first more than anybody else there on the field. You can almost pencil in, Pete. He's getting 5 to 6 catches tonight,
Yeah.
and you would think that he's going to be of that first down. I like the call on that. I would take that almost like an auto bet every single week, unless
Right.
you're lining up against somebody who can completely shut him down, which I don't think the Redskins will be able to do. But it sets up well for the Eagles tonight. We know it's the NFL. If it looks too easy, sometimes it is, too good to be true. But in this instance, I'm going to back the Philadelphia Eagles here. I think they win this football game by touchdown. I think they're overall the better football team here, and we'll see where they end up as the season goes on. But should be a lot of fun to watch here, Pete. Why don't we transition a little bit here since we're talking to the NFL? Let's go over some NFL opening lines that I wanted to take a look at before we were joined in a couple minutes here by Matt Holt, if he's able to join us. 253, 254, Pete. Chicago and the New Orleans Saints, two interesting ball clubs here. Because when you look at the Chicago Bears, John Fox knows exactly what he has at quarterback and an offense. It's not really going to help him out too much, leaning on an opportunistic defense and an opportunistic special teams unit that seems to be carrying them right now. But the problem going in here, Pete, you're now going to go into New Orleans, which the line opens up at 8.5, now sitting at 9, and over under a 48, which sounds really high with the Chicago Bears. You're going to have to score points. You're going to have to open up the playbook with Mitchell Trubisky. I wonder how that's going to work out. I haven't really capped it there, but I wanted your initial thoughts on this, Pete. Now that New Orleans comes off that win at Green Bay, going back to the Dome, and just the way that Chicago has won football games this year sets up to be a really unique situation there.
Yeah, well, my first thought on this one, at some point, like you just said, opening up the playbook for Trubisky, which they haven't really done yet, my sense is that at some point they're going to have to try to do that, and I think they might do it in this game. And if they do, that probably sets up one way or the other for an over, which is not a very high total here. It's just a 48 across the board, market wide, and even in the Bears' last road game against Baltimore, not a team that normally goes very high scoring. That one went to 48 in regulation as well, as we know. And of course, we know what Breeze can do each and every week. So my first thoughts on this game is a shot with the over. The side, probably just a few too many points, but I don't really have a play or an opinion yet on the side. Definitely leaning towards the over, though, at 48.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way Chicago plays. I mean, they know they stay in their lane, so to speak, and they're going to play defensive football in that game. What I believe 7 passes Trubisky had, but if you're going to win the football game, why beat yourself? It's that whole Jacksonville Jaguars MO now. Let's go out and play really good defense, and we'll try to pick up a couple first downs. And punting is not a bad option. We'll just keep our team in the game. So I'm looking forward to that game to see how it is. And my initial look at that, though, Pete, hanging a 9 out there. I mean, yeah. Chicago's. They play good defense, and defense is going to travel. And the Saints, not the greatest defensive team. So it just seemed like a little bit of a high number to open up. And then seeing the Chicago Bears total peak close to 50 or opening up at 50 at Chris made me kind of chuckle a little bit. But we'll see down in the Dome as the week progresses here. And then we'll flip it over to another game, Chicago, who they just beat here, 257, 258. Carolina and Tampa Bay. Cam Newton and Jameis Winston are going to square up in this one. Two quarterbacks right now seeming to be a little bit underachieving. I know the numbers look good on Jameis Winston, but the Buffalo Bills beat him again, coming off that awful loss to the Arizona Cardinals. Also, if we take a look at the opening line numbers here, Pete, Tampa Bay -2.5 at Pinnacle, -1 at Chris, now sitting anywhere between 1.5 to 2.5, depending on where you're shopping out there. An over-under of 44. Looking at this game opening early, Pete, I'm not even actually looking at the side here, so to speak. I'm actually a little bit intrigued by that 44 number. Tampa Bay doesn't play the greatest defense, and Tampa Bay can score. We'll see if Luke Kuechly gets back for the Carolina Panthers, but I'm actually looking a little bit at that total, Pete, to start off here in that Carolina-Tampa Bay game. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I was thinking that the total looked a little bit, actually suspiciously low to me, which makes me want to look into it a little bit more. Obviously, Carolina has injuries on the offensive line. They weren't protecting Cam Newton, and he was getting banged up a little bit. And Cam Newton's kind of a hard cat to figure out. Just when he looks like he's really taking a beating, it looks like he's half injured, looks like he's sluggish, then he'll come back with 2 games where he looks like, Superman MVP again. And then just as you're thinking that he's going to be given those Superman performances game in and game out, he has another couple of games where he's looking banged up, a little hurt, sluggish, not on his game. Obviously, the last one was the latter. The big question is how likely is Newton going to be to have a bounce back performance here, and how much will the offensive line be able to protect him in light of all the injuries? My guess is that probably it's going to be another game where Carolina struggles. And I'd be leaning Tampa Bay here at -2 or 2.5. Jameis Winston reported to be injured, looked fine in his last game. And I mean, Tampa Bay had some other issues. Obviously, defensively, they're very vulnerable. So yeah, I kind of agree with you on the over, and I'm leaning Tampa Bay here, -2 or 2.5. Although that's definitely an educated guess on what to expect from Newton and the offensive line.
Yeah, Pete, exactly. I always wonder sometimes, you know how you try to go into a football game, like you pretty much know what you get from Aaron Rodgers. You pretty much know what you get from a Drew Brees on the season. Cam Newton's so hard to figure out at times because when he looks like he's really engaged, he can be a dominant football player. But sometimes you just look out on the field and he just feels like, you know what, I just don't have it today. I'm not going to press and, let's go 3 and out and I'll throw a couple, deep balls out to see if Benjamin can catch them. It's one of those wild card type situations with Cam Newton because if you catch him on a really good day when Carolina's playing well, they're really tough to beat. But otherwise, sometimes I see him, looks like he tends to give up in that situation. So we got a couple more games that we'll take a look at here as well, Pete. I do have to intercede here for us. On the line right now, CG Technologies, Matt Holt. Follow him at Matthew Holt VP on Twitter. Always a great follow when he's not on here as well. He gives us Devin Brackett to go over information to see and go across the counter to see what's taking place. Welcome into the show. Monday night action here, Mr. Matt Holt.
Hey, Donnie, how we doing today? Look, it was a really rough weekend for the book. No bagels for the boys this morning.
Hey, by the way, I meant to tell you, we'll get right into the NFL games because there was a common theme sort of yesterday, which I felt, sharp money was taking control, but it looked like the public was on the right side of most of those. There's 4 games I want to go over with you. The first one we'll take a look at is the New Orleans Saints and the Green Bay Packers in that one. Opening up the line a little bit higher, around that 6.5, came down towards game time because I know a lot of, sharp money was coming in on that, trying to feel the Packers at home, hoping that it missed too much of a beat with Hundley at quarterback, but that line drops, but still gets the cover in that situation. Matt, from your end, what did you see in that Packers-Saints game here? We'll start it off with that.
And that was one of the string of bad games yesterday. Saints, Vikings, Cowboys, Rams, those 4 really seemed to pound us on yesterday. So, yeah, I mean, that was a bad game for us. And not only that, but at that opener, we had a couple of games at that 4.5 to 6 mark where people tend to like to use those games excessively in teasers for some reason, especially the public. So it ended up being a big teaser day with Pittsburgh and New Orleans being very popular selections, both getting home, both not only covering the number, but covering the teasers as well.
No, it's interesting because there was 4 games yesterday. Me and Jeff on the closing line, we talked about it after the 4 o'clock slate setting up the Sunday Night Football game. There were 4 situations that were really interesting yesterday, and we didn't even get to see the 4th one until later at night. The Packers line, which opened up a little bit of high, Sharps came in, took some chunks off of them. Also, the Cincinnati Bengals game, Pittsburgh opened up around 5.5, 6. That line crashed down to almost a 3. The New York Giants in a similar situation, opening up in some outlets there, Matt, around 7, and then coming all the way down to about 3.5 at game time. And then the Patriots at night, which earlier in the week you could have got Atlanta maybe 4.5, 5 in some outlets. That one comes down to 2.5 at night. And all 4 of those games, the same MO, Matt. The winners there look like were I don't want to say non-sharps, but maybe more of a public side. In those 4 games, what did you see in those type of environments that pushed those lines, or maybe what were you lined up with on there?
I mean, it was absolutely sharp action. If you look at the Hilton Super Contest, a lot of those games, a lot of people in the Hilton Super Contest who tend to be very sharp got buried this week just because of those 4 games you talked about. The problem is, and the NFL is really unique in this certain singular aspect, that the public can bury you with parlays in the NFL, where in every other sport, and even most of the time in the NFL, you'd love it if you took nothing but parlay action. But when you have a bunch of public teams like that all in a row winning and people parlaying together, I could tell you that a significant piece of our loss yesterday came from parlays, which came from the public.
No, it was definitely an interesting game. It was pretty clear cut there. If you want to say from your side of the business there, Matt, give me one game on Sunday where you guys had a good number against. I know, Dallas still going to be real public there, 40-10 victory, and also got to the over. Was there an over-under, maybe a side, which you guys had a decided win against the public yesterday?
It had to be the Chicago Bears. I think this was the big sharp and public spot for the Carolina Panthers. Extra rest coming off that Thursday night win against Philadelphia, and that was a tight game. So they come in, they're still 4-2. They come in with extra rest. We know the Bears beat Baltimore, but Baltimore's been really down. You know, Trubisky had a less than 50% completion percentage. A lot of reasons here to back the Carolina Panthers, and they completely laid an egg on the offensive side of the football. And that game staying under and the Bears not only covering the spread but winning outright was our biggest winner of the day.
By the way, also, I want to take a look. We always like to poke fun at the Cleveland Browns. My one loss yesterday was a dumb move by me. I actually took the over in the Cleveland-Tennessee game. Saw it dip down to 42. I thought I was going to get a little bit of value in that game. Absolutely no value. It ends up 12-9, even in overtime. I didn't even scrape the barrel. But looks at CG Technologies yesterday for you, Matt. Closed at 6 and looks like an over-under of 43 in that game. Are we still seeing sharp action on Cleveland? Because they finally got a cover there, albeit going to overtime. How was that game for you guys over there?
We did see some sharp action. It wasn't as much sharp action as you thought. I think it was more of a fact that, look, we saw Marcus Mariota the week before on Monday Night Football against the Indianapolis Colts, wasn't able to move out of the pocket at all. So basically every sharp I talked to in that scenario said, look, we all expect this to be a low-scoring game. The Titans have to protect Mariota. He can't move out of the pocket still. And since he can't move out of the pocket, their offense can't run efficiently. Running backs are a little bit banged up. On the other side of the ball, you have a quarterback who got benched because he was the worst quarterback rating in maybe NFL history. He gets benched for a guy who's even worse, and then you have to go back to that guy who got benched. So I think a lot of people expected it to be a low-scoring game. In fact, that game, the under on that game was our biggest loss of any total on the day. So that total ended up being really bad for us. A lot of under action on that game. But you're right. The sharps that started off on Cleveland again this year have really started to back off. We did see a little sharp action, but I think it was more due to the fact that if you're going to bet the under and there's an underdog that's more than 3 points, you tend to lean toward that underdog because points become a premium in a game you expect to be low scoring.
Gotcha. Tonight, we're going to set up a little Monday Night Football action on the rotation, 477, 478. Matt, looking at your lines here right now, 48.5 for CG Technologies, minus 5.5. Give me some thoughts here, because obviously it's always a big-time bet football game. You know, if somebody's trying to start off their week good or end their week good, depending if you're betting with a local, offshore, or in Las Vegas itself. What are we looking at from this aspect today? Are you getting sharp action on the Eagles, Redskins, total over-under? What are we looking at here?
It's heavy Philly action for us tonight. In fact, it's a bad situation for us tonight if the Philadelphia Eagles get the cover here. 3.5 times more dollars wagered on the Philadelphia Eagles over the counter. That tends to be the more tourist-style bettors just coming into the casino. And then look, when we look on account, that tends to be the sharper bettors. 6 times more dollars wagered on the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm sure that number is inflated a little bit because he had 2 6-figure bets on Philly, one -5, one -5.5. So we really need the Washington Redskins tonight. In terms of the total, though, that's actually a place where we're black tonight, amazingly. We're seeing solid two-way, over-the-counter public and on-account sharp action on both sides of this total tonight. So if we can just get Washington home, could be a big night for the book.
No, you're right. I mean, it's an interesting one. That's the one thing, like looking at the total early in the week, even though you do have Washington a little bit banged up on defense, you're still getting that division game. And it's no gimme in the NFL, Matt, when you're hanging a number, 48, 49, or 50. A lot has to go right in order to hit that number. The same way, like last night, you're looking at the game. I know there was a little bit of fog that rolls in, but that line, I think, closed maybe 55.5, 56. When you think on paper, oh, my God, Atlanta and New England's going to match up. But every single thing, 1 4th down stop on the goal line, a couple missed field goals, a dropped pass. You have to have a lot of things go right to hit that number. I actually would be leaning a little bit towards the under in this situation since it is division rivalry. Both of these teams know each other. I mean, they'll probably end up in the mid to high 40s there. But if you're asking, as an opinion on that, I'm just going to lean under there. But I see your point there, getting that good two-way numbers here. On Saturday, Matt, talking a little bit of college football. I know Devin wrapped us up and did a pretty good job last week. Heading into the weekend on some of the sharp numbers that we're looking at in college football. What did we see on Saturday? Some winners and losers from your side there.
So, look, the 3 biggest winners for the book Saturday, not the sexiest teams in the world, the Temple Owls, Rutgers Scarlet Knights, and Fresno State Bulldogs. Fresno State continuing to be a covering machine this year, undefeated against the spread, not only covering the number, but getting the outright win and blasting San Diego State. Biggest losers for the book, though, Central Michigan. That one was a big, sharp move, open to pick, went all the way through 3, and they absolutely rolled. Georgia Tech, another one for us. That game was 25-24 going into the fourth quarter. Looked like maybe Wake was going to get the money. We had some six-figure bets on Georgia Tech. Yellow Jackets outscore them 14-0 in the fourth quarter. See you later, Wake Forest. Virginia Tech, another one. They are just fading North Carolina right now, nonstop. Public, sharp, everyone. It's the anti-North Carolina money action, anti-North Carolina action. And this week it was Virginia Tech's turn, and they took care of business there. And then TCU, look, they laid an enormous number with TCU, and we took some incredible six-figure bet on this game. 250K bets on TCU. Obviously, not many people looking to back Kansas in this spot. TCU absolutely throttles them.
No, I hear you on that there. But by the way, Matt, before we get you out of here, interesting here. I mean, we have the World Series that's going to be coming up on deck shortly here for us. I know you take a lot of action on that, you know, getting down. It's a really good matchup. Dodgers, Houston, whether even was the Dodgers or Yankees, real sexy matchup here that we're going to take a look at. Are you getting some early action on this, maybe for a series win or even for night one of the game that's going to start tomorrow night? What are we seeing there?
So interestingly enough, we've taken a little bit more Astros series price than I thought. I thought this series price opened light anyway, and I thought with our proximity to LA and the amount of Dodgers action that we get normally, that we were going to see a wave of Dodgers action come early. Not really the case here. You know, we're seeing Houston money come in, and we're one of the lower numbers in the market. I see some people as high as 170. You know, we're down to 160 now. On the series price, and this is a series price that I really thought was going to be closer to $2 than it is $1.50, but that's not the case. At $1.60, certainly closer to $1.50 than it is $2 here. Thus far, game one, though, although they're betting Houston in the series, they're betting on Clayton Kershaw, and that's no surprise. We have a ton of Dodgers fan here with our proximity to LA, and they love betting on the Dodgers when Kershaw pitches. That's the case game one. Game one, we already have a 97 now, so almost a six-figure liability on the Dodgers tomorrow's game one.
Nah, fantastic. And by the way, I mean, obviously other sports still in action here. Looking at early season NBA action, to me, I always, joke around that the NBA doesn't start until Christmas Day, so they get the big lineups out of there. There are, half dozen games, 6 to 8 games tonight. Anything that you're looking at in particular? I know Golden State Warriors probably always, interested in betting with the markets there. You're going to have the Sixers, sort of that upstart team. Haven't had a win yet. Do they get the win tonight? Any sharp action coming in on NBA tonight there, Matt?
So we got 2 games tonight with over 75K liabilities, 3 games tonight with over 50K liabilities, and those 3 are the Houston Rockets, the Miami Heat, and amazingly, the Sacramento Kings. Their biggest liability of the night, the Sacramento Kings opened one up to 2.5 right now, I think, and they are just pounding. We just took 2 25K bets again on the Sacramento Kings. Usually the first 2 weeks of NBA, we make people bet it, let people bet as much as they want in 25K increments on NBA. And what we're seeing is huge one-sided action on the Kings. Obviously, Eric Bledsoe not playing tonight, probably played his last game with the Phoenix Suns here. After tweeting out yesterday, he just didn't want to be there anymore. They had a meeting today. They sent him home. He's not going to be on the team anymore. It feels like a team that's a little bit distraught right now. Obviously, they suffered the worst opening night loss in franchise history. People have taken notice of how bad this Phoenix team is right now, and we are seeing huge Sacramento Kings action.
Nah, interesting. Matt, always a pleasure there coming on Monday nights and talking to us and then, setting up the week when we get you later on the show. Always a good friend of the program and always a good friend of sportsbookreview.com. Folks, if you're just tuning in right now, you see Matt here, give him a follow on Twitter. Always ready and willing to respond with great information at Matthew Holt VP. Matt, we'll do it again a little bit later in this week, buddy.
Thanks, Donnie. Love the show. Love what you guys do. Best of luck this week. Take care.
Thanks, buddy. All right, folks, CG Technologies, Matt Holt right there giving you a little bit of across the counter. If you haven't done so yet, folks, also check out SBRodds.com, at SBR Sports Picks on Twitter, the YouTube channel. You guys are on it right now. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. Get the alerts there. I'm, busy guy. Most of you guys are busy, working real jobs, I'd like to say, being out in the real world other than me in this little cave down here. Get the alerts there. When something pops up there, you can watch it on YouTube. Always a lot of fun to do. And also check out the site itself at sportsbookreview.com. Pistol Pete, let's get back to some business over here. here. What do you say?
All right, yeah, let's do it. An interesting, huge move. I mean, in that Sacramento Phoenix game, like usually, I talked about this with Jimmy the Bag in the morning show. A lot of times, you see teams when they make a coaching change, the first game afterwards, they cover. And Jimmy the Bag made the point that Phoenix is in such disarray, though, that might not be the case here. But any team that fires their coach, by definition, is in disarray, right?
No, you're right. Yeah, I mean, it is really. I saw the fun. If you've been following on Twitter, Pete, he has the team meeting, gets sent home there, but he actually said the tweet wasn't meant for the Suns. He was at a hair salon and he wanted to get out of there.
Oh yes, no. Look. That's a good, a nice little dodge there. I use those kinds of dodges all the time, and I'm pretty good at them too. Yes, nice dodge, Eric Bledsoe.
Pete, let's take a look. We got about 10 minutes left in the show here. I do want to get to some opening lines here for the NCAA football. A lot of interesting things going to take place here. Some big games that I want to check in on. Nice win last week by the Penn State Nittany Lions. We'll take a look at that game in just a few moments. The first game we're going to take a look at here, Pete, and I believe it is a Friday night game. A Friday night game, maybe Thursday. The Florida State game on the 27th, so that would be
that's
Friday night.
Game.
I'm sorry about that. Yes. 111-112, opening line in this one. It raises eyebrows because it's Florida State, because it's Boston College. Boston College not to be that great a team over the years. Florida State just rolled their helmets out and beat Boston College. You're looking at the opening line, Pinnacle at 3.5, Chris at 3.5, Pete. There's 2.5s out here right now against Florida State going on the road here. People anticipating possibly, or maybe sharp money anticipating, a possible Boston College win outright. It's just astounding to see that number, Pete. That's why I picked this line. It's almost like you would have to take Florida State in the spot, but then you take pause and say, wait a second, how bad are things in Seminole country at this point where you're not even more than a field goal favorite over not even a very good Boston College team, a very game Boston College team over the past couple games that they played. But what gives here, Pete?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you, I was wrong about both of these teams last week, but I'm more concerned, and I was more surprised about the fact that I was wrong about Boston College. Now, Boston College did take sharp action last week, according to Brent from BetDSI. Early in the week, I thought that Virginia was the play at -7. Virginia, obviously, I'm still kind of high on them. I think Benkert is good. I think they have a good defense, but I think it really speaks to the improvements that Boston College has made offensively, and I think those improvements offensively are, at least for the time being, for real. So I'm actually looking at this game as far as who's going to win or cover. I'm definitely scratching my head, definitely going to do more research, and very likely going to be off of it. But I kind of like the over at just 45. I think Boston College's improvements on offense, again, are for real. I think they're going to be able to put up some points here. And I also think that Florida State will be able to move the ball at least somewhat on BC. Low total for Friday night game. And I'm thinking that the over might be the play here.
Pete, next game up here, 195-196, a resurgent Georgia team, a really good football team here in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. I don't care what they call it now. That's always what it was when I was growing up, and I'm going to keep the faith in that one. The same thing with the Red River Shootout, not the rivalry, not the big game, whatever they call it there. I'm going to go old school in this one, Pete. Interesting line here. I mean, you have a neutral site here, obviously played in Jacksonville, not at Georgia, not in Gainesville. Same place each and every year, split the tickets right down the middle. It's always a fun environment depending on who you're betting on, or who you're gambling, or who you want to win. But interesting number comes out here, Pete. 2 touchdown favorite here for the Georgia Bulldogs. Over under in this one, 45.5. Looks like Chris opened up an early number of 46.5. It always looks, when I see this, Pete, a 2 touchdown lead in the rivalry game. Boy, you just want to lean on, the Florida Gators in this one. But Georgia, I really think, is that good a football team this year. I don't know how much you can do on the offense as the Florida Gators, but I do understand it's a neutral environment. It is a rivalry type game. You saw, Oklahoma, Texas still battling it out at this time. But I think Georgia's a really good team, and it might come down to just that line. If you could sneak in, that early line was 13.5, got bet right to 14. I can see somebody making a case for Florida, but I just think Georgia's overall the better team. If I'm looking at it early in the week without doing too much, diving in or information, I might lean towards the Georgia Bulldogs here, even though it is a 14-point line.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with your analysis. I would slightly disagree with your initial slight lean, but I think your analysis is dead on. The line is, I have no opinion on the line as of right now, because I agree with you that Georgia is legit awesome. If I didn't think they were legit awesome, I would definitely be on Florida here. At the same time, if it wasn't a rivalry game, and if it wasn't if I thought Florida was a team in complete disarray, then I would also be leaning Georgia as well. But it is a rivalry game. Obviously, Florida is bad, but not that bad. Georgia is great, legit awesome, but the line is huge. So as of right now, I have absolutely no play on this one, and I'm going to look into it further closer to kickoff. But as of right now, no play on this one. I don't want to fade Florida. I don't want to fade Georgia here. At the same time, I don't want to give Florida 14 points in this spot.
Pete, game of the week for me, the one I'm interested in watching the most here, and it's actually not a night game, which actually surprised me. 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, 1:30 for you down there in Costa Rica. Penn State, Ohio State. Line opens up here at -6 at Pinnacle, -5 at Chris, sitting at 6.5 or 6, depending on where you're shopping at. Initial reaction for me, that's a little bit too much to give Penn State. But when you look at overall Ohio State, the type of caliber football they play, they're at home in this one. Are you looking at maybe even, it sounds crazy to think that maybe even a little bit of letdown. So much hype was put into this whiteout here at Penn State to get over the hump, beat Michigan, and move on, that, it sort of takes it out of you because you're going and playing a physical Michigan team. You handled them. You beat the hell out of that team. But now you got to go into the horseshoe and play another fast physical football team with the Ohio State Buckeyes. I mean, do I think Penn State can hang around in this game? Of course they can. Do I think Penn State can win the football game? Sure I do. I think that number is pretty sharp there, Pete, sitting right at 6.5. It sort of makes me want to lean with Penn State, but boy, would I have loved to see the 7 in that game. I don't think it's going to get there. I would still lean towards Penn State on the early line, just trying to be a square and line it up that way. Pete, what are your early thoughts on that game, buddy?
Yeah, basically, once again, we're kind of in agreement. Ohio State's a tough team to get a read on, though, because, of course, they played mostly cupcakes, and the one tough team they played, of course, is Oklahoma, and we saw what happened there. They got beat down both in points and yards. So, obviously, Ohio State is an elite team. The question is exactly how elite are they, and you have to know that to analyze this spread because, Penn State is, they blasted Michigan. I like that one last week. That was one of the games that I called accurately. I thought that Penn State getting that many points, and people said the same thing last week. They said, I don't know, that just looks like too many points to be giving to Michigan as you might initially think about this game against Penn State. But last week I was all over Penn State. And in this one, as far as the spread is concerned, I'm kind of agreeing with you. I think the spread is pretty sharp, pretty dead on. If it did hit 7 -110, might take a shot with Penn State there. And the total just came out. My first thought is think about the under at 56 or 56.5. Again, it just came out, so I didn't do any deep research or even real preliminary research into that total yet, but I'm going to, and my first thought is lean under.
Fantastic, Pete. Best part of the show. I know the subscribers out there do love it in the live chat box. We're going to do a quick rehash here of what we like tonight. Pete, go over the plays that you like tonight that you're leaning on that maybe some of these people can find some winners on before we recap the show. Go ahead, Pete. Floor is yours, buddy.
Okay, here we go. First of all, Chris Thompson receiving yards plus rushing yards over 65.5. That was what it was when I bet it. I don't know if it's moved. It might have gone down. But Chris Thompson over 65.5 receiving and rushing yards combined. Also, definitely liking Golden State first half -7. If Golden State comes in with a dud, then sure, I'll eat the loss. But if they don't, I think they'll cover that one. Golden State -7. And in hockey, betting on Toronto to show the Kings that their hot start was maybe a little bit of an illusion. And like in Toronto, I took them -1, which combines the puck line and the money line.
Fantastic. Got those 3 plays written down. We'll see if we can cash in on some of those tonight. I'll lean on my Philadelphia Eagles here. Prevailing line right now, if we take a look, Bet Online is listed at -5. That's where my book is offshore, so I'll go with the -5. Gave it out last week to subscription clients there at -4.5. But again, prevailing line tonight will go exactly with that 5. I still feel comfortable. Anything less, as I said, than 6.5. I think the Eagles win this game by a touchdown, and we'll have some fun here. I'm looking forward to it. Got a nice steak on the grill. Pete, what are we doing tonight for the games tonight, Pete? Little hanging out at the bar, going back to the crib? What are you doing down there?
What am I doing for the Monday Night Football game?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to be, that's easy. The same thing I do every Monday Night Football game is I go home and I crunch the college football totals openers.
Nah, fantastic. Pete, thanks again for coming on the show tonight on the Monday. Have some fun down there. We'll see what takes place in the games tonight. Hopefully we can cash those 3 games that Pete gave out. Also, as you know, I'm on the Philadelphia Eagles here at -5. We'll see what's what and shakes out. It's been the closing line for October 23rd, 2017, presented by SportsbookReview.com. Once again, folks, we always like to say, check out the page, SBRodds.com. It's free. Use it as an odds service. Get those updated line movements there. Follow us on Twitter at SBR Sports Picks. Also on YouTube. You guys are here right now. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscription description link. Get the notifications there. Also, if you are thinking about opening up an offshore account, sportsbookreview.com is this place to do it. Go over. There's a multitude of books there, exactly what you're looking for. Get those bonuses in there. Help keep the lights on for us here. And if you like the content, let us know as well. Always a pleasure doing the show with you folks tonight. And as always here at sportsbookreview.com, we thank you for tuning into the show. And we hope you beat the closing line tonight, fellas. Have a good night now.